betrayal. There was an ear-piercing scream as servants rushed about. The doctor's on his way, my queen. Just hang in there. Lena shut her eyes against the pain. Something was wrong. When she had given birth to Iris, there hadn't been this much pain. She tried calming down. Please be born healthy, she whispered through gritted teeth. There's too much blood. Has anyone gotten fresh warm water? Her head maid asked, doing what she could to make Lena more comfortable. Another maid rushed into the room. I brought fresh cloths and a healing tonic. Lena waved the girl over, taking the vial and drinking it. It was tart and awful as it smelled, but it seemed to help ease her contractions. She tried gaining control over her breathing once again. I don't care what happens to me. You all better make sure this child is born healthy. They bowed to her. We will do our best for both of you, my queen, they said together before rushing about once more. Dr. Hauger walked into the room. Where's she at? Lena's head maid moved closer. We aren't sure, Doc. We feel like the baby should have come by now. Hauger frowned. Okay, step back and let me check. He pressed a hand into Lena's swollen belly, and she cried out, light glowing from his hand and illuminating the child within her stomach. Well, that's not good. Lena, you can't have this child by normal means. Panic filled her eyes. Is she okay? For now, yes, but I need to cut you open. Something that's frowned upon to... He didn't get to finish. Do it now! He nodded. As long as you understand the risks. He turned to the head maid. I need more healing tonic alcohol, my stitching kit, and lots more warm water and fresh cloths. Now, the new princess's life depends on it. All of you go collect this. They ran out of the room, muttering amongst themselves about where the needed items were. Once the two of them were alone, he leaned closer to Lena. Lena, my queen, someone has poisoned you. Shock crossed her face, but was soon replaced with hurt as tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know if you will make it alive, but your child, she is strong. Lena shook. She has her father's powers after all. He shook his head. Not only that, but she also seems to hold power over nature as well. Lena gasped. But the ritual, they both should have been born with only light magic. He shrugged. Perhaps her nature powers were needed to fight off this poison. Do you think so? Halger nodded. I will do my best to make sure you both survive, but I can't promise anything. Lena nodded. It's fine. Just protect my baby. I know he wasn't happy to find out our second child was a girl, but I didn't think he'd go that far. Halger sighed. Well, he wasn't happy with Iris's birth either. You remember what he tried to do to her. I told you to leave him. Lena frowned. I wish I could, but as you know, our marriage vows are binding. I couldn't leave even if I wanted to. He groaned. I swear, that is nothing more than a royal lie. You can't leave him or love someone else, yet he can do whatever he pleases, including trying to kill you? Ridiculous. Lena rested a hand on his arm. Just do what you can. No blame will befall you. I've already sent a letter to my parents. Hauger was shocked. What did you tell them? Simply that if something happens to me, that you did your best, and that I leave Rena in your care. What about Iris? She's old enough to make her own choices, and I know once you get out of here with Rena, she will follow. He grasped her hand. Lena, I don't think leaving Rena with me is the best option. I've never taken care of a baby before. She smiled softly. I have faith in you, that you can do it. Before he could protest more, the maids returned, placing the items on the desk. He straightened. Let's get this done, with the queen safe and her baby healthy. Yes, sir. Several hours passed by, and then there was the cry of a baby. Lena's mind was hazed, but she smiled. Let me hold her. Alger frowned. Lena, you're too weak to hold her. Her eyes pleaded with him. Please, Halger, this may be my only chance. The maids glanced at each other, worried for their queen's words. He bit his lip. Okay, just take it easy. He helped her sit up against the pillows before placing the child in her arms. Halger's heart broke as she began to cry. My precious Rena, Mommy loves you so much, but I can't be here for you. I wish I could. She stared at her daughter, who had soft, almost white hair and beautiful pink-red eyes. Halger, will people make fun of her for not having dark red eyes like her father or sister? He shook his head. Who would dare make fun of a royal child, my queen? If anything, I think people will praise her for being so beautiful. She smiled. Thank you, Halger, for everything. She held her child out for one of the maids to take as a fit of coughing hit her. My queen! Halger moved in, feeling her temperature. It was unnaturally cold. No, please, my queen, you have to survive. His eyes pleading as he grabbed another healing tonic, and light flowed from his hands. He knew where the poison was centered at now that there was no child in her. It was aiming for her heart. Let me die in her place, he muttered. You can't. You are the only one I can trust. Raise her well. He could feel her pulse slowing down. No. He shook as he placed his hands over her heart. He focused the energy of his light magic and pushed it into Lena's heart, but it didn't change. Lena, please. Why wasn't he able to stop the poison? He felt it when her heart stopped beating, and that was when little Rena began to cry again. Halger's legs grew weak, and Garnday walked in. Is the child crying? The silence that greeted him made his heart race. What's wrong? Garnday glared at Halger. What's going on? Tell me now. Halger stood up, his mind somewhat numb. I couldn't save them both. She died. Garnday almost smiled. What? Halger flinched. I'm sorry, sir. I had to cut into her stomach to get the baby out alive. She gave permission for me to do so. The doctor watched as Garnday moved to his wife's side, kneeling at the bed, and cried. Only Halger knew it was fake. Arrest him, Garnday muttered. I'm sorry, what, my king? A maid asked, moving closer. I said arrest him! He killed my wife. He killed the queen. Halger gasped. My king, I did what I had to do at the queen's request. Several guards rushed in, grabbing Halger as he struggled to fight them off. I didn't kill her, he cried out even as they dragged him from the room. I didn't, he yelled, struggling against the guards. Please take care of the child. Did she get the chance to name our daughter? He asked, his voice shaking as he tried to suppress his laughter. To the others, it would seem like he was broken. The maid holding the child nodded. Yes, she called her Rena. Garnday nodded. That's a wonderful name. It means queen. I see she had high hopes for this child, since it wasn't a son. A few of the maids glanced at him. Would you like to hold her, my king? He shook his head. I'm afraid I might drop her with how shook up I am. Perhaps another time? Please, may I be alone with my wife? They nodded, filing out of the room one by one. When the last one left, he began to laugh. His eyes cold as he stared at Lena's unmoving body. Rena, you really thought I would let a female take over my kingdom? You are more foolish than I thought you to be, Lena, honestly. You even believed that our bonding vows were real. It was so easy to trick you. He touched her cheek. From the start, I never loved you, and yet you forced yourself to remain loyal to me. Don't worry, I'll make sure Rena is taken care of. After all, she is the child who killed you. No one will think twice of how badly I may treat her." He turned, heading out of the room, his head hanging low so no one could see how happy he was. Loving Lena. Hauger was chained to a wall in the darkness. He was pretty sure 4 days had passed since, and he hadn't been given food or water. His new title now, Queen Killer. It hurt every time someone called him that. "Lena, I don't think I'll be able to keep my promise to you." He heard a door open and didn't bother looking up. It was likely Garnday coming down to torture him again. "Dr. Hauger?" His eyes shot up when he heard Iris's voice. "What are you doing down here?" She glanced up the steps. "I told them I wanted to yell at the killer of my mother." "Iris, I didn't kill your mother. Please, trust me," he begged. The last thing he wanted was for Iris to lose faith in him. Iris held up a hand. "I know you didn't. When I went to visit her after Father left, I tested her for poison." His eyes grew wide. "Why did you even think about doing that, Iris?" "Because I know Father wasn't happy when you told him his newest child was a girl as well." She was paler than usual. "What happened? What did you see, Iris?" "I saw Father with his personal maid." There was a faint blush covering her cheeks, even though she held a look of disgust. "What do you mean?" She groaned. "Dad was making love to his personal maid, and they were talking about killing Mother and my baby sister." Hauger felt sick. It was all a lie. What was? The binding vows. Lena was so scared something might happen to you if she betrayed Garnday. She wanted to run away, but she was scared. That bastard told her that the binds would kill her and her children if she loved another man or tried to run away. Why didn't anyone look into that? If they had, my mother would still be alive. Hauger frowned. She tried to, but your father's personal maid always stopped her from getting far. Now we know why. Damn it. Iris walked over to Hauger. You loved Mother, didn't you? He nodded. Yes. I loved her with all my heart, Iris. I thought of you like a daughter. That was why when you came to me asking to study medical things, I was overjoyed to teach you. Iris's red eyes seemed dull compared to their normal shine. I wish you had been my father. Can we run away? I don't know. If you ran, you would have to move fast before your father caught you. That's hard to do with a newborn, Iris. You would have to wait until she was older. The door opened, scaring Iris. I'm sorry, she whispered. I can't believe you killed her, you bastard, she screamed, her hand slapping across Hauger's face. It was a light slap compared to what he had been put through. I see you wanted to come in and get a few hits as well, my daughter. Iris shivered. Yes, Father. How could we have let such a man so close to us for so long? Garnday rested a hand on her shoulder, and she trembled. Don't worry, my child. I will fix that soon. Fear raced through Iris's eyes as she glanced to Hauger. He shook his head, and tears threatened to spill. I, I would like to excuse myself now. I'm very tired. You want to miss all the fun? Iris gave her father a small smile. I've not been feeling too well. Possibly the weather change? Garnday nodded. Well, I won't keep you. I don't want to lose anyone else precious to me. Iris was truly starting to feel sick now. Thank you, Father. Her words forced as she left in a rush. She ran past the guards and out of sight before throwing up. She coughed, wiping at her mouth. Why, Mother, why must an innocent man die? Why did you have to die? Why did you even love father and fall for his tricks? She cried, crumpling to the ground, crying. Garnday grinned as he stared at Hauger. Oh, you were such a fool, Hauger. You should have fallen for a different woman who wasn't so stupid. Anger filled Hauger. You were the one who was dumb, not even knowing or appreciating the gift of Lena's love. Garnday swung, the contact making Hauger's head snap to the right with such force there was a cracking noise. Garnday chuckled. Hill him. I think his jaw was just dislocated. I don't give a damn. I said heal him, so do it. The man nodded, forcing Hauger to drink a healing tonic. He even uttered an apology, but Hauger spat in his face. It doesn't matter if you're really sorry or not. The fact that you are still helping him means you accepted money or something similar to that from him. The man backed away, unable to look Hauger in the face. Oh, come now, Hauger. It isn't like this young fellow is to blame for your current problem. He grabbed Hauger's chin, squeezing with such force that it could break bones. You are here because you fell in love with Lena, and she happened to die after you did a procedure we deem illegal. So, this is all on you. Hauger glared at Garnday. Yes, well, at least I loved her unlike you. Cheating on her behind her back, making her think she was bound to you with a life bond. You are a worthless piece of crap. And one day, karma will catch up to you and you will lose everything. Garnday simply smirked at him. Big words from a man who's about to die. Guards, unchain him. His trial awaits. They did as told, unlatching Hauger from the wall and letting him hit the floor. Oh, and just to make sure you don't say anything unwanted, Garnday cut into his palm. The words you speak shall be those I command. As your king, you will fall to death as a traitor to our clan. Hauger tried to move away, but the guards held him still, and the blood seal was placed on him. He opened his mouth to try and speak out against Garnday, but nothing came out. What did I just say? You will not speak unless I wish it so. Bark. Hauger's eyes grew wide as he barked, and the guards chuckled. Since when had the king of Light Elves learned to use blood magic? Last he had known, the blood clan had died off. Now he was beginning to wonder. Hauger was dragged by the guards, not getting a chance to try and walk on his own. The looks he was given by most were nothing but hatred. The only people who seemed sad were Iris and Lena's headmaid. She stood watching him, holding baby Rena. I'm sorry, I can't help you, she mouthed to him, but he shook his head. Take care of that child in my place, he mouthed back, watching her begin to cry before vanishing. They all knew how this would end. Hauger Tywin, you have been brought forth today for the murder of our beloved Queen Lena, my beautiful wife. Garnday paused, acting like he was choked up. He took in a deep breath before continuing. Long ago, I had thought there was something strange with how you acted around her. He paused once more as his lover brought him a warm drink. I was foolish to ignore it, as it seems you were driven mad with jealousy. I trusted you with our lives, and you decided to steal her from me by killing her? What are you to say against this? Hauger felt the words come out of his mouth, and it tasted sour as they were lies. Please forgive me for wanting what isn't mine, my king. He wanted to cover his mouth, but they had chained his hands to the table he stood before. For years, I've watched you and Lena, and I couldn't help but fall in love with her charms. She tried to push me away, due to the bond you two swore, but I still pursued her. Finally, I snapped. She was already struggling to have the baby, so I used this chance. Tears began to fall as the words forcefully left his mouth. So you admit it all. You killed my wife out of jealousy. Garnday's lover shook her head. My king, may I speak up? He glanced to her. Do you have something to add to this? She nodded. Yes, proof. Garnday did his best not to smile, holding on to his pained expression. Show us. She pulled out a vial of green liquid. This was found in Hauger's office. It is a poison meant to attack someone who is pregnant. How we know it belongs to him is because his initials are engraved in this vial, and it can only be opened using his magic. Hauger shook his head, trying to break free of the seal that was on him. There was no way he kept that kind of thing in his office. When it was first made, he had done his best to find a cure for it. Do you admit to this, Hauger Tyven? Hauger didn't speak for a second, making Garnday frown. I did my best, he mumbled, making Garnday nervous. It seemed he needed to work on his control. At killing my wife? Hauger shook, anger filling him. I did my best to save her. The only way to have saved her and the child was cutting into her womb. I would have never done that unless it was needed. At last, he admits to it all. No! Garnday glared at him. I'm finally able to speak the truth. Yes, I loved her, but I would have never done anything to hurt her or kill her. I also would have never made her turn against you. I respected her too much for that. I didn't want to ruin her reputation. Those in the room gasped. Lena wasn't poisoned by me. I loved Lena too much to ever do such a thing. You want to know who really poisoned her? It was... Light sliced through the air, and then there was silence, cutting Hauger's words short as he grabbed for his neck. Blood trickled down before his head slid to the floor, gasps filling the room once more. Sorry, everyone. I just couldn't handle myself. After the loss of my wife, my emotions are all over the place. The fact that he dared to try blame someone else for his actions enraged me. Everyone in the room nodded, telling him it was understandable. The only person who was upset was Iris. She turned, leaving, tears streaming down her face as Hauger's death repeated in her mind. Unwanted Princess. Iris stood at the grave she had made Hauger. A year has already passed. It's hard to believe. Father and his mistress have gone public, and no one questions it. Little Rena, she is healthy, despite how others treat her. Mother's personal maid was kicked out due to wanting to take care of Rena. She placed flowers at his gravestone. I'm doing what I can to stay near her, but my father is sending me away. He's using the excuse that it's time for me to get married. She frowned. I don't know if I can stop him from getting rid of me this time. You and Mother have to guard her. Rena is still too small. I can't take her. I'm only 19, and I'm struggling as is to fight my father. She sighed. I would need to be able to get a solid setup. I know if I were to go on the run and head for Deltara, they'd accept me in a heartbeat, but getting there with Rena is the issue. I can't take care of a 1-year-old. Iris stood once again. I will leave, and once I get a place set up without any of my father's spies, she nodded, smiling warmly. That's when I'll come back, and I'll rescue my sister, so you and Mother have to watch over her for me. She turned, leaving the grave, finding the strength in herself to do what had to be done. She just hoped that it could be done quickly, that way her sister wouldn't suffer too much longer. By the time she made it back to the castle, her father was already yelling about something. There you are! I thought you had foolishly tried running away. Your fiancé is here to greet you. Iris froze in her tracks. My what? Anger coursed through her as a man stepped out from behind her father. It's nice to meet you, Princess Iris. I had heard many things from your father and whispers of your beauty, but it seems you surpass it all. Iris had to admit one thing. At least the man her father was trying to force her to marry was handsome. He had short blonde hair with one blue eye and one golden eye. Prince Kartali, thank you for the compliment, but as I have yet to have even had time to know of this, I ask you refrain from trying to get close with me. I bite. She could see the anger seething in her father's eyes and smiled, but the smile died a bit when Kartali began to laugh. I'm not sure I said anything funny. I wasn't joking. My father failed to inform me of any of this. Kartali could feel the tension and moved towards Iris, leaning closer. Chill, and let me take you away from your father. I can practically taste your hatred for that man. She glared at him, backing away, but nodded. I will show my fiancé around. Father, you may head back and relax as you have finished what you planned to do. Garnday watched his daughter. Perhaps she was acting tough, because she didn't like things being sprung on her. But he had picked Kartali because he was exceptionally handsome. You kids have fun. Iris, I expect you to give him a proper tour. You understand? Iris glared at him more. Yes, father. Kartali did his best not to laugh until Garnday was gone, and then laughter filled the air. Oh, man. A normal person would die from the tension between you two. Very funny. So, tell me, why did you want my father gone so badly? Kartali smiled. So I could get to know you without you deathglare battling your father. It made Iris laugh slightly. See? That's the side of you I want to know. If it makes you feel any better, my mother forced me into this engagement. It actually did make her feel better. Well, I guess if I'm to leave with you today, then we best get along. I don't wish to hate the man I'm moving in with. I've dealt with that enough thanks to my father. Kartali chuckled, grabbing her hand before placing a kiss on it. It's nice to meet you, my future queen. I have one question to ask, though. Do you really bite? Iris smirked. I guess you'll have to find out. Well then, I best be careful not to get bit. Just know, I bite back. It seemed like the man she was to marry wouldn't be so bad after all. Leaving her behind. Iris sat in the carriage, looking out the window as her castle grew further from view. Are you okay, Iris? She gave Carr a small smile. Not really. I hate leaving Rena in his hands. He's her father. He wouldn't do anything to harm her. Yes, he would. Confusion filled Kartali's face. What do you mean? She shifted slightly, beginning to pull up the left side of her shirt. As she did, he saw a long scar that ran along her ribs and down below the hem of her skirt. My father hates the fact that he doesn't have sons yet. He went off in a drunken rage one evening, came to my room with his sword, and tried killing me. Kartali was beyond shocked. How could he do that? Because I wasn't a son, and he didn't think a woman could lead. Your father does understand my mother's the leader of our kingdom, right? Iris shrugged, tugging the shirt down. I don't know what he is thinking anymore. Ever since Mother was murdered, he just let his sanity slip away. That happens sometimes when you lose a loved one. That's not the case with him. My father never loved my mother. He is just using it as an excuse. Cart moved over to her side. Let's not worry about that. For now, you will come to my home. I will overthrow my mother, and together we will make my kingdom rise. Once my mother is out of the picture, and things are safe, you will come and get your sister. Iris felt relief wash over her. She had worried he wouldn't want her baby sister living with them. You mean it? I would never joke about a child's life. I would love to say we could take her now, but with my mother in charge, she would be in danger. She shook her head. No, we will do your plan. I'm just thankful to have been placed in your hands, Kartali. For once, it doesn't feel like I'm alone in this anymore. He smiled. We were forced together by our parents, and while we may not love each other right now, I'm sure with time that will change. But the biggest change and regret for our parents will be the day we met. She liked how he thought. He seemed to have the entire future planned. When the time comes, I'll get a hold of my grandmother and grandfather. They will be our biggest supporters, especially after they know who really killed my mother. They smiled at each other. This was going to be a very beneficial marriage for the both of them. Not so much for their parents, though. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you're enjoying it so far. I'm extremely stoked to be doing this series. So, as always, if you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate any sort of support. Thank you. Bye.